Hi, everyone. Along with Adam Lauridsen, I'm Ravi. Kapur. The NBA season is officially over. The 2020 champions are the Los Angeles Lakers. They win 4-2. 106-93 was the final in a game that, frankly, was over at halftime. The Lakers were up by 30 for most of the game. This is just window dressing the final score. But LeBron James, as we have discussed, we thought AD had played a tremendous series, but LeBron James named Finals MVP. Let's just recount quickly the series because I know there's a lot of NBA business to talk about. Namely, this was a unique series. The Lakers winning their 17th championship as a franchise, tying the Boston Celtics. I'm sure the folks in Boston are not happy to hear that. I don't even recall the last time these two franchises were tied. It might have been way at the start of the NBA. So, Adam, digest the season and the Lakers title for us.
I think the Lakers answered the greatest question, which was you can have two tremendous players, but can they mesh and play with a team effectively? They answered that in this finals. Yes, LeBron and Davis were tremendous, but the Lakers role players played very well. Different players stepped up every single night. And both of those superstars deserve credit for adjusting their games to accommodate the other player. They were a great tandem. They worked well together. The defense, all series, but in this game in particular, was just absolutely smothering. It starts with Davis, but LeBron also played very well on the defensive end. They played the right way. So I think that they were the best team in the bubble at the end of it. I think the Heat would have given them more of a run for their money if they were fully healthy. But I don't know if anybody was going to overcome the duo of LeBron and Davis when they were playing that well and with that much energy at both ends of the court.
No question about it. I mean, Anthony Davis, again, up until really a couple games ago when he got dinged up again, I mean, he was playing as well, if not better than at any point that I've seen him play. And then LeBron, it's LeBron. And when you have LeBron at full capacity, knocking down threes, setting up plays, again, another triple-double here in Game 6, and I think that put him over the hump to win the MVP, even though I think Anthony Davis was the pivotal figure throughout the series, I believe. But LeBron is fourth MVP. The only person with more finals MVPs is Michael Jordan. And a lot of folks are going to say LeBron is the greatest of all time. I know there's a huge LeBron faction out there. We can get into that if you'd like, Adam, a little bit. But I do want to talk about the bubble experience as well, because some folks are going to say, hey, this is a giant asterisk on the season. And for me personally, I started covering the season literally 12 months ago because I went to the first ever NBA games in India. And I got to do a live broadcast involving the Kings and the Pacers. So that was 12 months ago. And I'm looking through photos and I'm hanging out with, there's Priyanka Chopra and there's all these different celebrities there. And that was obviously a totally different life, seemingly, than what we have today, where folks are locked away in their own corridors. Tell me about the season. And do you put an asterisk by the Lakers championship, or this was a well-deserved win?
No, it was a well-deserved win. I don't put an asterisk by it. It was a different type of win, different challenges, things that may have been easier in some respects. But it's such a surreal NBA season with so many atypical challenges that I think you have to respect their focus and endurance to make it through this far and to get it done like they did in the bubble. For me personally, thinking back all the way to the beginning of this NBA season, was the Warriors opening their new arena here in San Francisco. It was a lot of different faces on the Warriors team. It was the NBA considering what things were like with Curry and Durant no longer on the same team together, a bit of a wide open field. And I think that we still got some of those interesting storylines playing out in the bubble. You look at Denver's success, you look at Miami's success, you look at teams that even didn't make the playoffs, like Phoenix, that really look like they could be an up and comer. The NBA is wide open. They have a lot to look forward to. So while all the attention is rightfully on LeBron and the Lakers, I think the league is in a bit of a transition point where we're seeing a changing of the guard, where there's a long list of young superstars who are ready to ascend and really make a name for themselves. Doesn't mean we shouldn't appreciate what LeBron and Davis are doing, but the NBA is much more than just the Lakers right now and should be appreciated as such.
Unquestionably. And of course, the Clippers were thought to be right there, potentially taking on the Lakers. They didn't even make it out of the second round, and they fired Doc Rivers, which surprised a lot of folks. And Doc quickly got a job in Philadelphia, another team with a couple of enigmas, at least when it comes to the playoffs. And even though I think, if Kawhi doesn't get that lucky bounce A year ago, maybe the Sixers go on to the finals. So a lot of different storylines, a lot of teams packed with talent, folks that can make to the stage. Miami fell a little bit short. Certainly, they lacked a little bit of offensive firepower. It was interesting that Rondo played so well in Game 6. Playoff Rondo is real. I mean, he doesn't do much during the regular season, but he certainly stepped it up tonight. And a guy, I almost during this effort by Rondo, it kind of harkened back to what Iguodala did for the Warriors, being that guy, that six-man role, scoring 20 points when you don't expect it, and helping to seam up a victory.
Yeah, I think that's a really good comparison. But the Lakers got those types of contributions up and down their roster depending on their night. KCP had a great game. Danny Green had a couple good games. Caruso was an irritant, definitely played his role well. So I think the Lakers have to be happy with the roster that they assembled around their two superstars. They had people who were capable in any given moment of stepping up and making a difference. The question I think that we have to look at going forward is, can LeBron do this again? We've become so accustomed to almost every single year having LeBron in the finals. I think it's going to be a challenging path. He definitely has an incredibly talented teammate, but it was very difficult for him to fight his way to this finals and to this victory. It's only going to be harder next year, I think.
No doubt about it. And certainly, I think LeBron played incredibly well. I mean, really above my expectations of how well he played. And AD certainly was lock and step. And if you look at towards next season, which I'm sure every franchise in the NBA is quickly looking at what happened in the bubble and looking at Miami as a 5 seed making to the finals, knocking down, it seemed like, Milwaukee Bucks, who were poised to make a run, and stunning Giannis. Is Giannis going to stay on the Bucks? Is he on the move? Some folks have rumored him to go to Miami, go to Golden State, and have the Warriors rekindle their championship run, and they may be just one piece away. Certainly, they might be a big man away. Someone that can defend Anthony Davis, certainly, from giving the Lakers a challenge. What will the Clippers look like in the post-Doc Rivers era? All these different questions. Certainly, Utah has talent. Memphis is up and coming. I mean, there really is a lot of talent throughout the league, and some of these folks are a player or two away. What did you take away from this season as we head towards next season? Do you see a lot of parts moving? I mean, obviously, we don't even know about the CBA as well. That might be a component because, economics of the NBA have changed dramatically. That without fans, there's a lot to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on the basketball court, I see two things. One, if you're going to beat the Lakers, I think it largely becomes a question now of how you contain Davis. I think LeBron has demonstrated that he can be a good complementary player and will be for years to come. He's still dominant right now, but he obviously has more years where he can help set up Davis. And Davis really leveled up in the bubble. He looked like a dominant player. When he's able to maintain his intensity and focus, he's as good as anyone else out there. So if you're the Warriors, if you're somebody in the East, you're saying we hit the Lakers and Davis deep in the playoffs. What do we do to contain him and to compete against him? You need to build your roster thinking about that. I also, like you said, wouldn't sleep on the Clippers. We've seen an example, one being LeBron's team in Miami, where you have a superstar team that comes together and it takes a year to figure it all out. They don't gel immediately, but then they come back and they do live up to their potential. They live up to their talent. So I wouldn't write the Clippers off. They are still, in my mind, the most talented team in basketball front to back. And I think with a new coach, with a bit of a change of pace, with some more time and experience, they're going to figure it out. They're going to be incredibly hard to beat. But your final point, what's ahead for the NBA, I think is the ultimate question. We don't know when the next NBA season is going to start. We don't know if there is going to be a labor disagreement or labor adjustments. The NBA was in a bit of a easier position, if anything could be easy in the COVID era, where they were done with most of their season. And so they could figure out, okay, how do we do a 2 or 3 month period to get it done? When you look at the NFL, when you look at baseball, they were looking at doing their entire seasons in the COVID era, and they had to make bigger adjustments because of it. And that's what the NBA is going to have to confront here in this coming season. I'm sure they're up to the task. They did an incredible job running the bubble and should be complimented for how well they did with no infections the entire time. But there's some challenging discussions and fights ahead, I would suspect.
No question about it. And of course, the NBA should be really proud without any COVID-19 infections to any of their players. And certainly we've seen the NFL have to reshuffle a whole bunch of games, which is really unprecedented because so many players, the Titans especially, have been contracting coronavirus. and certainly Major League Baseball, their whole season got ruined. I feel. I mean, I really did not get into the MLB season because it was so condensed, and you had a whole bunch of folks who didn't get to know. I mean, baseball is one of those routine sports where you have it on in the background, maybe if you're listening to it. And it's been a challenge for Major League Baseball, and certainly getting the mind share, all three sports at the same time in the fall while kids are going to school, people are still working. Oh, we have this presidential election going on. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world, and meanwhile, we're all trying to stay healthy and safe. It has been an interesting time for sports and all of us dealing with these different dynamics.
Yeah, we tend to view sports as entertainment, and they can be a bit of a distraction. And it's wonderful as that to give us a break from the rest of the world. But one, sports are a business, and people are still trying to keep their businesses going during the pandemic. They're facing many of the same challenges that everybody else is. And the fact that all of these sports leagues have generally been able to bring their businesses back and get some sort of sports operation up and running is impressive from an operational standpoint. But second, your point about everything else that's going on, there is a lot of competition. There's been a lot of talk about the drop in the ratings for the NBA, what you can attribute that to. I don't think it's attributable to the product on the court. If anything, I think it's just a reflection of the crazy times that we live in, whether it's shelter in place, whether it's the disruptions in our routines with schools being closed, with everything else going on, whether it's the political unrest, the trauma that many people have been through. These are strange times, and we're lucky to have sports to be an outlet, but it's affected as well by all of this.
So taking it back to the NBA season, now that again we don't know when the next season will start, and NBA draft, all that stuff is still, I think, a little bit in the air. What would you like to see, especially since you've been covering the Warriors for such a long time, been a longtime Warriors fan? They have the #2 pick overall. They clearly have a heck of a shot to run it back, and if they're fully healthy. I mean, I look at Miami and the Lakers, and I think the Warriors are right there with them. So, what would you like to see them get? And what teams are going to be right there again next year? Who do you think is really going to take a step forward?
I would love to see the Warriors try to make one more championship run with Curry, Clay, Draymond, the core that they have now. I think they're good enough, and I think that they can round out their bench and their supporting cast in a way that can put them right back into contention. Does that mean that you take somebody with the #2 pick or you trade it? That's unknowable right now because we don't know what the offers are on the table for a trade. I think if you can get one or two high level players for that #2 pick that can contribute immediately and fill needs, particularly on defense and rounding out scoring on the bench, I think you take that deal rather than drafting somebody. That said, if you think that Wiseman's a sure thing and could become a Davis stopper or Davis competitor, then you probably take that gamble and you look also to extend your window even as your core right now gets older. For me in the West, I think the Lakers and the Clippers are the two teams that you still need to beat. I think that there are a ton of other teams, probably 8 other teams that are in the mix there as well that could level up depending on transactions or people developing. I think Utah and Denver obviously are at the top of that list, but Portland, Phoenix, a whole bunch of other teams. You could even look to Sacramento maybe maturing and developing. The West is going to be very competitive. So the Warriors can't just stand pat. They're going to have to move forward, try to improve their roster because everyone else is getting better out there as well.
Lots to digest from this season, and certainly for next season. For an NBA fan, I certainly thought that the product was terrific in the bubble. I really thought they played at a very high level. And even though some of these games were blowouts in the finals, I mean, game 1 and game 6 were disappointing to me. But I'm glad the Heat fought back. Jimmy Butler showed he's got a lot of heart. Certainly, we've seen a lot of these players develop in the bubble, and I think you're going to see a Tyler Hero in the years to come. I mean, he's got a tremendous future, and so I look forward to seeing what the Eastern Conference has to do next year. Because I think Miami is clearly on a path to be back here a few more times, and the Lakers, and certainly you got to give them a lot of respect for coming through despite the challenge of the bubble and the distractions and not being familiar with the surroundings and having to deal with the complications of not having a normal life. It really is. It does cause a lot of mental strain on folks to not have that kind of routine.
Yeah, the NBA playoffs are an endurance test, and there are no accidents that come out of it. If you are a team that has made it through the NBA playoffs, that long stretch, you make it to the finals, you did something to deserve to be there. And things can happen in the finals. Injuries are part of the game. We've seen that every single year. But the Lakers were consistently excellent. They were healthy. Their big players made big plays when they needed them. That's usually what gets you to an NBA final, and they were no exception.
I love the best of seven format. You got to win 4 series. You've earned it, and certainly the Lakers should celebrate heartily whenever they're allowed to celebrate. And the folks in Boston, I'm sure, are pretty upset that they have to share top billing now with the Lakers. And so it's good for the NBA. That's a heck of a rivalry. And I'm really glad that we can talk about Miami and the Warriors and other franchises that have come up in recent years. And it makes the sport a lot of fun to cover. Adam, I don't know when we're going to get a chance to do this again, because who knows when there's going to be a season. But that was 12 months in the books, which was a heck of an extended run. And again, I thank you for coming on with us. It's always a pleasure to talk basketball. It is strange to do it virtually, but it did give some sense of normalcy to at least be able to do this and to talk about a game that we both clearly love.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I hope that we will be back on a basketball court soon, standing next to each other, talking about next year's NBA Finals when it comes around.
Terrific. For Adam Lauridsen, I'm Ravi Kapur. Thanks for watching, and we will see you guys next season.